Thomas Malthus, one of the most famous people. He shows up in like so many social studies classes around the country. Well, here's what you got to know about him. English economist, minister. He sees what is going on at the height of the Industrial Revolution in England, 1766, 1834, when he's alive. And his most prominent work is 1798, an essay on the principles of population. This book, or this essay that he writes, basically says he's an incredibly negative person. He's an environmental determinist. And what he's looking at is he sees the population of the world is growing faster than it ever has before. 100% right. And he sees that with each generation, it's only continuing to grow. He sees exponential growth. He sees population growing in it's called a J curve, where for most of history it had been just this flat line. And then Malthus sees it goes and it takes off like a J. And he's right. Population is doing that. But he sees also that food is not growing like that. That food is still growing, but it's growing at a constant rate. It's not growing exponentially. It's just growing numerically or arithmetically. Uh-oh, that's a problem. And so he says, without some sort of positive check on population, there has to be some sort of check, or else there's going to be negative checks. And by negative checks, he basically means famine. So what he's looking at here is if I scroll forward to the next slide, he sees this is basically Malthus's theory. That Malthus sees here that if you have 1 unit of food in one person today, 2 years from now, so 1 generation later, you'll have 2 people and 2 units of food. But then your exponential growth is now started 4 people, 4, 8, 16 people with every new generation. But then your food is still going up increasingly by 1. That's a problem. In other words, that in chart form looks like this. That population, whoop, takes off, and your resources stay relatively stagnant. And then all this area in between here, that's a problem. He mainly talks about food, although he does talk about other things. And so Malthus has this theory for a period of time. If you look at the population, here's that J curve in action, that until 1800, almost no population growth whatsoever, and then boop, takes off big time. And Malthus has been shown to be right on a couple levels post his beliefs, writing his beliefs. Population has still continued to grow up. Food production has not kept pace with population growth. There have been some positive checks that have limited growth, and there have been some negative checks. And he also sees that, minority population rates are still increasing the birth rate faster, which is things neo-Malthusians will look at, so people that hold Malthus ideas since. There was a book that came out in the 60s, Population Boom, the population bomb, that basically said Malthus is right and our population is still going up. Well, that was in 1960, and that was about the time when the doubling time in the United States was at the peak, and it's gone down ever since. But what do we see since then? Oh, by the way, here's the immigrant population in the United States, basically, and that's, you could almost go any minority population. And let me go beyond the United States here. This is true throughout the world, that any non-majority population in the country, that's the driver of population growth. So here in the United States, you can see just where it looks, but that's true the world over, that the migrant population and but to be even more specific, it's the non-majority population drives almost all the population growth. And so this is not a racial thing at all. This is just whoever the minority group is in the country, that almost all drives the population growth. So since then, Malthus, however, shown to be wrong. Why? He didn't know food preservation was coming. He didn't know we'd be able to distribute food faster and forth. And population growth is so much slower now than it was in 1800 or even 1960. And you saw that throughout the population pyramids, throughout the demographic transition model, that Malthus, does he have some components where he's right? Yes. But he also has some significant components where he is wrong. Okay? Our food growth has still continued to go up. Has it kept pace with population growth? Not really, but it's still, we have enough food to feed the world. Fact. Our population, as is shown now, it's going to be an S curve that we think, yes, the J curve, what Malthus saw, but it started to level out, and we think it's going to level out at about 2100. Okay, so here, we went from a J to now we are an S. So I want you in your own head to figure out, do you think Malthus was right? Do you think he's wrong? Find out.